Hey everyone, today's lesson is going to be about an article that kind of has to do with dogs and second chances and also prison. So I hope you enjoy this one. We're going to kind of dissect it and then I'm going to ask you some questions as we go. So, the title of our article is Animal Service Program Gives Both Inmates and Dogs a Second Chance. So when you think of second chance, you kind of think of like another opportunity to do something. So when you think to yourself, like, what do you think it means when it's saying second chance? And how are dogs going to give a second chance to people that are in prison? Just kind of ponder that question as we continue throughout this article. So here's a picture of an inmate and a dog. The caption says, Titone and a dog named Lilac tussle as part of the program of Philadelphia-based nonprofit New Leash on Life USA on October 17th, 2017. So this is about 3 years old. So still kind of relevant, nothing too crazy. When it continues on, it says shelter dogs are paired with inmates who care for the animals and gain skills for re-entry into society. So it seems like now we know what it means with second chance. So it sounds like these dogs are somehow working with the inmates and the inmates are working with the dogs to help them before they are released into the regular society. We can see that this article was written in 2019. So even though the photo was taken in 2017, the article is about a year old. Okay, and I want to start reading to you, and as you can already see, I already have annotations here. I'm going to kind of explain a little bit my annotations as we go to try and save some time. A stray dog started Roberto Rob Rosa on his path to recovery. So think about what the word recovery means. Rosa had begun using drugs at age 9 and was labeled a career criminal by age 16. I remember the judge telling me that there was no rehabilitation for me, he says. Okay, I'm going to stop there and explain some of my annotations. So, age 9, I just went ahead and wrote down, why is he using drugs at this age? I'm pretty sure you're like in third grade when you're 9. Like, that blows my mind. I feel like my biggest concern was if I was going to be first in line at kickball and recess. But he started using drugs at the age of 9. So somehow he's being exposed to these and started at a young age. And then I went ahead and highlighted this line as well. And I said, this is a quoted word. So we see quotations, and this is Rosa talking. I said, this is a quote giving emphasis to the article. We know that Rosa's judge told him there's no rehab for him. This makes us as readers feel compassion for him. Like, the judge literally told him, I'm sorry, at the age of 16, there's no hope for you. Like, that would literally crush me. Like, picture me telling you, there's no hope for you. Oh, so sad. So we can kind of feel like our emotions are being tugged here as we're starting to read. So that's going to keep happening throughout the rest of the article. A beloved family member died in 2002 while Rosa was incarcerated at Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution at Graterford. After that, he signed up for an animal service program for inmates. It was in that prison dog program where I regained my faith and life, he says. So incarcerated, I feel like, was kind of a big word. So that's a word gap for me. And I just kind of looked it up and noticed, oh, it means that you're in jail if you're incarcerated. I highlighted this quote, which is also a quoted word. And it's kind of like him getting his life back together. It's like, man, this program is what helped him change his life around. There he met Thurp and a black Labrador mix who had been adopted and returned 3 times. Okay, so a dog was adopted. Someone didn't want him. Adopted again, didn't want him. Adopted again, didn't want him. The dog was in danger of being euthanized, which means put down. So it's a word gap, but then we know our context clues stated what it meant. So this poor dog, for whatever reason, was given back 3 different times, which then was going to result in him being put down because obviously people couldn't care for him. Here's the next paragraph. I had my issues, he had his issues, says Rosa. All we needed was a little direction, some guidance, and some tools to work on it. The two of them found success together. Terp found a home, and Rosa was offered a job with the prison dog program when he was paroled or let out of prison. So there's a word gap, but we know paroled now means let out of prison. In 2005. He went on to work for several animal welfare groups and shelters, reaching leadership positions at each. So he kind of was in prison, worked with his dog through this program. He got out, and you can see he was working with more programs and was achieving a leadership position. So he wasn't letting him being in prison define his life. He was trying to make his life better as he went on and got out of prison. So I click on the word paroled here. I can see that paroled means when you are in prison, you're trying to live your life as normally as possible, but you need to check in with the parole officer to make sure that you are clean. The next section we have here is called Saving Dogs from Being Euthanized, which once again means being put down. However, his own experience led him to want to create a different model. The people that were on the end of the leash were just as worthy of a second chance as those dogs. So an inmate needs a second chance, but that dog also needed a second chance before he was put down, says Rosa. So we could highlight that. We could make that a quote, a word if we wanted to. I just didn't, but there's lots in here that you could. During his time as shelter manager, he met Marian Marquez, a volunteer. One day, Marquez saw staff removing animals to be euthanized. I was extremely upset that such wonderful animals were not going to live because of the lack of resources and adopters. She says, I vowed that day to do something about it. She's like, man, I'm not going to let these dogs be put down. I'm just not. So I think, what do you think she would do? How could you help this not be a problem anymore? Well, several years later, and with Rosa's help and experience, Marquez founded New Leash on Life USA. The nonprofit organization combines prison-based dog training with programming designed to help inmates in the Philadelphia area. The inmates are given opportunities to turn their lives around. Through the program, they get career readiness courses, life skills training, and reentry support. Reentry is a very difficult process in which former inmates return to society. They face a lot of challenges going back to regular life. So I highlighted New Leash because that's the name of the program that they created. And I want you to think about, why do you think once they go back to regular life that they face a lot of challenges? They're in prison. Why would they face challenges when they come out? Now they're free. So what would be so hard about that? Okay, now she goes on to say, we look for dogs that are less likely to get adopted, and we train those dogs, says Rosa, the associate vice president. At the same time, we're working with the people who are caring for those dogs by providing them with skills they can use. So we're trying to help those dogs whom people may not want, to train them to make them be adoptable, and it's also giving skills to those people to help train those dogs. The next section is titled Reentry Support After Prison Release. New Leash works closely with the Philadelphia Department of Prisons. Potential participants are screened by a whole range of people in the criminal justice system, like judges and prosecutors. Prosecutors are lawyers for the government. In criminal cases, they are the ones trying to prove someone did a crime. So I went ahead and I underlined this because not just any inmate can be part of the program, which is one of the questions I had when I first started reading this. Is like, okay, can anyone be in this program? If not, how are they chosen? So we kind of have a little bit of a answer here that they're screened beforehand. So it's kind of like going in for an interview for a job. You may or may not get chosen. The vast majority of people selected for the program are granted parole. After they are released from prison, the nonprofit connects them with a paid internship, transportation assistance, and extended reentry support. The goal is to help participants land full-time employment within 90 days of their release. So I highlighted this and I put that there's 3 benefits to the program. How cool that this program helps them basically get a job, paid internship. They also get assistance, transportation assistance. Maybe they don't have a license, maybe they don't have a vehicle anymore, so they can get a ride somewhere. But it also gives extended reentry support. So you may be struggling when you get back in the real world, but they're going to support you along the way. New Leash has worked with more than 340 participants since 2011. Rosa says the training and preparation these participants receive have in some cases led to careers helping animals. The program is also effective at preventing participants from returning to prison. Each year, fewer and fewer of the participants return to prison once they're released. So typically, if you have a record and you go to prison, the chances of you going back are more likely than someone who has not gone back. So they're trying to tell us as readers that that's not the case. If they're in this program, they're more likely to, have that job and continue to be successful in society as opposed to going back to prison. New Leash was transformative for participant Megan Ross. I found myself stuck in a never ending cycle of homelessness and substance abuse, says Ross, who was sentenced to prison 4 times. So we can kind of see just from this example. Megan went back and forth 4 different times to prison. She was homeless and she was struggling with substance abuse. So if you're homeless, what do you feel like you would need to do to survive? I feel like you have to do what you have to do. If you're struggling, you may be breaking the law to try and provide food for yourself or a shelter. I'm not saying she did this. I'm just saying for an example. And then I feel like maybe when she did get money or support, she abused it. She abused that money and was going back to those substances that she was addicted to. Over a 4 month period, there's a number and a stat, so 4 months, she took in 2 dogs that lived with her in her cell. She trained them and prepared them for adoption. So, like, I'm making a connection here just because I love dogs. And not that I want to go to prison, but like if I did, like how awesome would that be for you to be able to train a dog and the dog live with you in your cell? So you get that companionship, but you also feel responsibility that you're taking care of this animal to try and help them get a second chance while also getting some skills on your end as well. In May 2017, shortly after she was released from prison, she began an internship at an animal shelter. How coincidental. Then she landed a full time job at another company. Next section, teaching dogs to be adoptable. I was taught how to begin to love myself again and be the person I always knew inside that I was, she said in an email interview. A program that can take a broken girl such as myself and give her the skills and knowledge to become a mother, sister, employee, and friend again seems pretty incredible to me, says Ross. So I highlighted this because it's a quote of words, and so are a few of these other paragraphs, but it shows how she went from having no hope, like she literally just kept going back to prison, doing the same things over and over again, and then that changed to her being a successful citizen. She got a full time job. She's now making a difference and making her name for herself, which is incredible to think about. Not only are they able to change a person, they give us, the inmates, the chance to teach a dog what that is in the same situation as us, caged and deemed unchangeable, and make them adoptable, which was one of my favorite things. In Rosa, she sees someone who is both supportive and relatable to participants. Rob brings the factor of common ground. Inmates can relate to him on levels that you can relate to with anyone when going into a program. She says, Rob is still a major part of my life and a continuous support system that I hold close to me. Now, if you remember Rob Rosa from the beginning, he was in prison. So he kind of went through the same program, which is how he helped create the program that is there now. So it's kind of like when you go to maybe a camp. You expect the person that is holding the camp to be successful or have skills in whatever they're teaching. So, for example, if I'm going to a basketball camp or a softball camp, I would hope the people who are running it played those sports. It only makes sense. So she's saying, you know what? He was able to relate to us and we can relate to him because he was going through the exact same thing that they're going through, which is pretty cool. For Rosa, there is no shortage of motivation in his work with the nonprofit. I can't even count how many animals I rescued. I felt extremely rewarded just knowing that they found homes, he says. But there is nothing more rewarding than to know that you helped a human really see light at the end of the tunnel. Wow. Like, I feel like that's just like, it hits home at the end. There's kind of a full circle event there, and it kind of ends with a happy ending. So I want you to think about, like, what is the main purpose of this article? Like, why did we read this? What's the big takeaway? How was the article written? And what are you just left with thinking about? What's resonating with you? What's one thing that you feel like, holy cow?